Ever wonder how the music in a video game or a huge movie can feel so, well, epic? Today we're going to break down the original sound pack, the one creators used for hundreds of years before anyone even dreamed of a laptop. We are talking about nature. Seriously, think about your favorite game. That last boss battle? Or that one scene in a movie that gives you chills? What is it that makes those moments so intense? You already know the answer, don't you? It's the sound, the music, the effects. They're literally everything. They set the entire mood. Today, creators have it kind of easy when you think about it. You just pop open a laptop and you get access to these gigantic digital libraries with millions of sounds. I mean, you need a sci-fi laser blast, or maybe the sound of a super gentle rainstorm. It's all just a click away. But that gets you thinking, right? What on earth did people do before all this tech existed? How did composers like 200 years ago create those huge emotional soundtracks with literally zero computers? Where did they even get their sounds from? Well, the answer is pretty simple. They went outside. Yeah, nature was their ultimate sound pack. For a whole group of composers, we call them the Romantics. The natural world wasn't just pretty scenery. No way. It was an infinite library of sounds and ideas. It was their secret weapon for writing music that felt totally free, powerful, and just full of imagination. So, the core idea behind their music was fascinating. These composers basically believed that the outside world was like a giant mirror for our own feelings. So, a raging thunderstorm? That wasn't just bad weather, that was anger. A calm, babbling stream? That wasn't just water, that was peace. Their whole goal was to capture that raw power and beauty in their music. Okay, so let's get into how they actually pulled this off. Think of it like you're designing a level in a video game. The very first thing you need is the right setting, the right map, to create a specific mood. Well, composers did the exact same thing, but they used landscapes. For example, if a composer wanted to create a feeling of total peace, they might picture a calm lake, right? And then they'd write these really gentle, flowing melodies. But what if they wanted high-stakes drama? They'd look to stormy mountains and compose loud, super intense music with crazy fast tempos and huge shifts in volume, all to make you feel like you're right there in the middle of it. And they had a whole menu of options to choose from. Forests were perfect for creating a sense of mystery or adventure. A moonlit night? That was the go-to for calm, dreamy music. Mountains could give you this feeling of strength and awe, while a peaceful garden inspired beautiful, delicate melodies. See? Each landscape was a different emotional tool in their toolbox. Okay, so your level map is designed. What's next? You gotta populate it with characters and creatures, right? Well, for these composers, that meant sampling the sounds of actual wildlife. They did this using a really cool technique called musical imitation. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. They would listen super carefully to the sounds that animals made, and then they'd figure out how to copy those sounds with their instruments. The classic example is using a high-pitched flute to perfectly mimic a bird song. It's wild how it makes the music feel so much more real. And birds were definitely the A-listers, the most popular choice by far. They could represent freedom or joy, you name it. But composers imitated all sorts of animals to add character to their music, from the powerful gallop of horses to the buzzing of tiny insects. Each sound just added another layer to the story they were telling. So we have our setting, and we have our characters. What's missing? The special effects. And for these composers, the most dramatic SFX came from the weather and the changing seasons. This is where they created their most epic, blockbuster moments. Check this out. It's basically a recipe for how to build a storm out of music. First, you create tension with these low, rumbling sounds from cellos and basses. Then, you unleash fast, swirling notes in the violins that sound like wind and rain. Then, bam, you bring the thunder with loud drums and brass instruments. And just when it's over, you end with a quiet, peaceful melody for the calm after the storm. It's pure cinematic storytelling, hundreds of years before movies. Composers also use the four seasons to guide the listener's emotions. Music about spring would often sound light and joyful. Summer was warm and calm. Autumn would get a bit slower, more reflective. And winter could be really sharp and dramatic. It was a perfect way to connect the music to the natural rhythm of the year that absolutely everyone experiences. But this wasn't just about creating cool sounds. It gets deeper. there was a much bigger meaning to all of this. Using nature was also about identity. It was about creating a soundtrack for your own home turf. So composers would use the specific landscapes from their own countries, the mountains, the rivers, the forests they actually grew up with, to create music that felt distinctly like home. They'd even weave in local folk melodies. It was a way of expressing national pride and preserving their culture through sound, connecting people directly to their own environment. And really, that's the big takeaway here. Whether it's a composer 200 years ago listening to a storm, or a music producer today scrolling through a digital sound library, the goal is exactly the same: to use the world around us to tell powerful emotional stories. The tools change, for sure, but the mission, that stays the same. So, I'm going to leave you with this challenge. The next time you listen to any kind of music, I'm talking a movie score, a hip-hop track, a pop song, anything, listen just a little bit closer. Ask yourself, what's in its sound pack? What real-world or digital sounds are being used to make me feel this way? You might be really surprised by what you start to hear.